And we're recording. Y'all are hilarious. Let me make sure I'm muted. I am. Let me move this somewhere. So, hey, YouTube. Let me look at the camera because the camera's right there. Let me pull up the chat on my two monitors. All right, and then we can get started. All right. Let me see. That's not what I need to do. Here we go. No, why is my... All right, and then we can get started. We're not... There we go. Turn this off. So we are here to discuss a very polarizing topic. There has been plenty of conversation around the internet about women swirling, Black women swirling and Black women divesting. And so tonight we're going to have a conversation precisely about what swirling is, what divesting is it going to save Black women? Is it not going to save Black women? We don't know. So this all came about because one of my mutuals, well, two of my mutuals engaged in a dialogue on TikTok pertaining to not telling our daughters to date Black men. So I am going to share my screen and we are going to watch the entire thread. So the thread starts with a tweet of some Black man saying that he's not going to tell his daughters to date Black men. And then someone stitched that video and created a video saying that she is kind of sort of thinking about divesting. And then there was a comment left under that video, which was responded to by the third creator's video. And then the final video was a response to the third creator's video. So let's dive right in. And I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to show the videos approximately 3 times because they're so short and there's so much to take in. I also want to take more notes. I don't know if y'all want to take notes, but if y'all like me, I got my notepad ready, I got my pens ready, and I'm ready to like dive right in. So let me turn this on and turn this bigger. I'm going to turn my camera off. And for the people in the waiting room for Zoom, I am going to admit y'all as the third time. So I'm going to turn my camera off, put my...
Straight from the horse's mouth. Straight from the horse's mouth.
And you know what's also fucked up? That when many people encourage Black women to divest for that very reason, for the same reason why that guy would probably encourage his daughter to divest, to decrease the chances of being a single mom, the same way in which obviously a lot of majority of Black men are in fact turning Black women into single moms, the same way in which Black women are probably also turning themselves into single moms by continuously choosing the same kind of people. So in order to prevent that gentleman from that demographic that's actively often perpetuating that single motherhood within the community, when we encourage Black women to kind of like save themselves from the possibility of that happening because it's so rampant in our community, it's a problem. But dear Black women, look at the horse. And I want you to understand that at this point, choose yourself first. That's all I'm going to say.
Now, I'm about to be real direct about this comment right here, so I suggest you step off my page if you're not ready for it. Now, this is for both Black men and Black women who continue to encourage interracial dating Because you guys somehow think that it's going to solve the problems in the black community, when really it's just comfort for your own coonery that you guys are masking behind all of these issues that you believe are solely related to people being black. And now let's use this anti-black piece of you know what to fuel this conversation. Not only did she feel comfortable enough in going into a black woman's space and saying this, knowing full and well she hasn't cleaned up the shit in her own goddamn backyard, hence why she decided to step outside and date someone in our community, but she lives a little tidbit as to why biracial children that are part of the black community have such issues with black people when they're raised with their non-black parent. Her daughter, who likely looks something like me, is going to be warned about black men, despite the fact that this is not a black woman. She has no idea about the stuff that goes on in our community. Hence why, black men, you guys continue to date people like this without vetting them. And then you wonder why there's so much disdain against you as well. Because when you date these women and things don't work out and you leave them, there's an added push for their anger to be fueled against the blackness within our community. And it doesn't just start and stop with the man. They also have disdain toward black women. And black women, you know what? You're not necessarily any better when you guys do this stuff too. Because you guys want to be mad at black men who seek out non-black women for submission, which is under patriarchy. But the majority of you have not done the work to unlearn all of the things that push you under patriarchy to keep fueling toward capitalism. Most of the men that you guys date that are outside of the community happen to be moderate men with money. Those men also go unvetted. And the women in each of their communities still suffer at their hands. But you don't realize that because the proximity due to the capitalist aspect clouds all of your judgment when it comes to things like patriarchy and or white supremacy. And because you feel like you run certain things in your household, you completely gloss over that your mixed race child is also learning from you to not like black people either. I'm not unhappy with black men because they're black. I'm unhappy with the fact that they're men. And because of that, the socialization due to their blackness just looks different. Their disempowerment pushes them to do just about anything to gain power, which means they do the very same things that other races of men do to be seen as powerful. It just looks different. Last time I checked, this whole conversation we've been having about the anti-smortion laws were not passed because of black men. Black men literally possess no power. There is no reason for black women to be more scared of them than any other race of man when every other race of woman is being unalived and brutalized by the men in their own communities. And on the flip side of that, black men. Black women are not other races of women. They are not white women. They have their own unique struggle that is not less than yours. It's just different. In this country, you need to have money, and being the primary caregiver for children means that you need a partner who has the finances to withstand that. So fix the fuck up, y'all.
I'm just gonna leave this right here for you.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
A black man is advising and telling his own daughters to don't fuck with black men. There is a systemic and institutional problem within the black community. Let's call a spade a spade. There's a good majority of black men who refuse to acknowledge that they are toxic as fuck. This is not about pushing some type of interracial agenda or having anti-blackness. Nobody wants to fuck with somebody who is mentally unstable, who can't even handle rejection, and bitches and cries and shifts blame for their fuck up and their failures onto other people. Nobody ain't got time for that shit. If I had a daughter, I'd tell her don't fuck with black men. At the end of the day, call it what it is, but man, people are tired of this crowd. That's why the black community hasn't progressed since the 1970s. But oh well, c'est la vie.
Things that other races
Straight from the horse's mouth. Straight from the horse's mouth.
And you know what's also fucked up? That when many people encourage black women to divest for that very reason, for the same reason why that guy would probably encourage his daughter to divest, to decrease the chances of being a single mom, the same way in which obviously a lot of majority of black men are in fact turning black women into single moms, the same way in which black women are probably also turning themselves into single moms by continuously choosing the same kind of people. So in order to prevent, right, that gentleman from that demographic that's actively often perpetuating that single motherhood within a community, when we encourage black women to kind of like save themselves from the possibility of that happening because it's so rampant in our community, it's a problem. But dear black women, look at the horse. And I want you to understand that at this point, choose yourself first. That's all I'm going to say.
Now, I'm about to be real direct about this comment right here, so I suggest you step off my page if you're not ready for it. Now, this is for both black men and black women who continue to encourage interracial dating because you guys somehow think that it's going to solve the problems in the black community when really it's just comfort for your own coonery that you guys are masking behind all of these issues that you believe are solely related to people being black. And now let's use this anti-black piece of you know what to fuel this conversation. Not only did she feel comfortable enough in going into a black woman's space and saying this, knowing full and well she hasn't cleaned up the shit in her own goddamn backyard, hence why she decided to step outside and date someone in our community, but she lives a little tidbit as to why biracial children that are part of the black community have such issues with black people when they're raised with their non-black parent. Her daughter, who likely looks something like me, is going to be warned about black men, despite the fact that this is not a black woman. She has no idea about the stuff that goes on in our community. Hence why, black men, you guys continue to date people like this without vetting them. And then you wonder why there's so much disdain against you as well. Because when you date these women and things don't work out and you leave them, there's an added push for their anger to be fueled against the blackness within our community. And it doesn't just start and stop with the man. They also have disdain toward black women. And black women, you know what? You're not necessarily any better when you guys do this stuff too. Because you guys want to be mad at black men who seek out non-black women for submission, which is under patriarchy. But the majority of you have not done the work to unlearn all of the things that push you under patriarchy to keep fueling toward capitalism. Most of the men that you guys date that are outside of the community happen to be moderate men with money. Those men also go unvetted. And the women in each of their communities still suffer at their hands. But you don't realize that because the proximity due to the capitalist aspect clouds all of your judgment when it comes to things like patriarchy and or white supremacy. And because you feel like you run certain things in your household, you completely gloss over that your mixed race child is also learning from you to not like black people either. I'm not unhappy with black men because they're black. I'm unhappy with the fact that they're men. And because of that, the socialization due to their blackness just looks different. Their disempowerment pushes them to do just about anything to gain power, which means they do the very same things that other races of men do to be seen as powerful. It just looks different. Last time I checked, this whole conversation we've been having about the anti-smortion laws were not passed because of black men. Black men literally possess no power. There is no reason for black women to be more scared of them than any other race of man when every other race of woman is being unalived and brutalized by the men in their own communities. And on the flip side of that, black men. Black women are not other races of women. They are not white women. They have their own unique struggle that is not less than yours. It's just different. In this country, you need to have money, and being the primary caregiver for children means that you need a partner who has the finances to withstand that. So fix the fuck up, y'all.
I'm just gonna leave this right here for you.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
A black man is advising and telling his own daughters to don't fuck with black men. There is a systemic and institutional problem within the black community. Let's call a spade a spade. There's a good majority of black men who refuse to acknowledge that they are toxic as fuck. This is not about pushing some type of interracial agenda or having anti-blackness. Nobody wants to fuck with somebody who is mentally unstable, who can't even handle rejection, and bitches and cries and shifts blame for their fuck up and their failures onto other people. Nobody ain't got time for that shit. If I had a daughter, I'd tell her don't fuck with black men. At the end of the day, call it what it is, but man, people are tired of this crap. That's why the black community hasn't progressed since the 1970s. But oh well, c'est la vie.
All right, y'all. I had planned to show it 3 times, but I don't. Do we need to show it a third time? Or are we all good to go?
I think we're good.
We're good. All right. So I'm gonna stop
Yeah.
sharing the screen. I'm gonna come back on, and we gonna. I got a little spiel, and then we can get into introductions.
Okay.
So this is so weird because y'all are over here, but my camera's over here. So whatever. So before we get started, I wanted to say that I don't know about y'all, but I am not interested in just agreeing on everything. I think for me, it's a waste of time, but let me just go ahead and read what I wrote down so I don't miss nothing. So I say, we are not here to agree on every point. I've asked these ladies to be here because we have differing viewpoints. I feel it is a waste of time. I didn't even finish my sentence. Damn, a waste of time to sit here and agree on every single point. I think of the Black community as a corporation. There's different departments that are doing different things for a common goal. We don't all need to come to this, do the same things or think the same way. We need to agree on a goal and commit to move forward. Or you can think of it like putting a destination into your maps. Unless you're super close to the goal or it's a straight shot, the map gives you alternative routes, all leaving from the same point and arriving at the same place. We need all hands on deck, and I encourage a healthy discourse. So with that being said, I invited these ladies. There are a few ladies missing. They may join us later. I know Jay had some mommy business to take care of, but I invited these ladies here because everyone had a different viewpoint of the same thing. And I think it will be a productive conversation to have. And as we go through things, I have provided them with a rough outline of the conversation that I'm wanting to have. So I'll let these ladies introduce themselves, let them know how they would like to be referred to. I'll be one of the flowy people and give you a chance to say your pronouns if you vibe with that. But just let us know who you are. Let us know who you is on the TikToks, any other social media things that you would like people to be involved in. You know, advocate for yourself, girl. Your soapbox right now. So whoever would like to go first, let them know who you is and all that.
All right, so period. Hey y'all, what's up? Hey Coco, thanks for inviting me here or whatever, you know what I'm saying? This is getting me real excited. First of all, don't do that because I haven't chopped it up with you in a minute. So if anybody knows, we go way back, like 2 flapjacks in the sandbox with my hands caught on play.
Just gets on the internet and embarrasses me all the time.
I go by Queen Pin for the purposes of this and going forward here and therefore. My socials are at Tiny Tim, TINYTHEMB. My pronouns are that bitch and queen. And can I not say that? Anyway. And yes.
You are so embarrassing. We are trying to have an important conversation.
This is important. Address me properly.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're okay.
Anyway, and I'm here for a good time, not a long time. I also have a podcast. We took a hiatus on the podcast called Seattle Lights in the South. It is on all streaming platforms. So if you want to review, renew, and refresh before me and my co-host come back, this is a great time to do that. And our socials are the same at Seattle Lights in the South. Thank you. Okay, bye.
That was a great intro, by the way. That was very, I was like, yeah.
What you got for us, Snacks?
All right. Facts and Snacks official on TikTok. I've got an IG page as well, but you know what? I haven't figured out how to master that. I feel like I'm still old and I'm just learning. But I mean, in my profession, as I'm actually in my Toronto location office, so I'm a licensed paralegal. Over here in Ontario, where I live, we actually have the license to practice similarly to lawyers. So I am a litigation paralegal, trying to move away from litigation though. But my law firm is a Black-owned and operated. It's what, sorry?
It's stressful, ain't it?
It really is.
It's stressful, ain't it?
tomorrow and Tuesday. And yeah, I'm overloaded right now. But you know what? This was very important for me. And, and I absolutely agree with Coco here. It's a conversation that should be held without thinking that everybody's going to have the same opinions and perspectives. Because, there's different positions in the movement. That's how I consider it. But you guys will probably learn a little bit later on that I have, I would say, different views in terms of interracial relationships. But nonetheless, like I said, my law firm is Black owned and operated. There's 4 of us Black women here, and we primarily service the Black community, of course, more specifically women and children. So a lot of times we're handling situations, especially with the lawyer. She does family law specifically. So a lot of stuff is related with respect to domestic violence, child care protection. I think you guys call it the Office of, Guardian ad litem. I think you guys call it out there. We call it the Office of the Children's Lawyer. So she's trying to get on that panel. So, I mean, again, we are very invested with the Black community, and like I said, more primarily as it relates to our women and children. But nonetheless, we obviously have an open policy for Black men to come in here and have their issues resolved whenever possible.
Perfect. So before we get into like the real thick of the conversation, I wanted to just go through some definitions, and just so that we're all on the same page. I know I'm like super formal, right? So the first term, before we can answer the question, I wanted to define what swirling meant. So I went to the Googles, and the most general definition it gave me was a slang term for interracial relationship. So are we all in agreement that is what we're going to use as the definition of swirling?
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another term I wanted to define, which because people kind of link these two together, is divestment. So I got 2 differing answers. I got kind of like the sanitized technical definition, and then the sociological definition from the Urban Dictionary. Wow, I could have just said the Urban Dictionary. Anywho, according to the Urban Dictionary, divestment refers to someone who dates outside their race because they think the race is better or superior to their own. Merriam-Webster defines divestment as to deprive or dispossess, especially of property, authority, or title, or simply to take away from a person. So this may be where we have some conflict, but are we in agreement with both of those definitions? Because one is a more vernacular, more dictionary definition, and the other one takes into account the sociological aspect of it. Or is it a no for both of them?
I mean, the Urban Dictionary one, I think, is gonna ruffle the most feathers, but yes, I agree for the most part.
Okay.
I would actually, I personally do think that's what it means, but
Okay. So I agree and disagree.
Okay.
Where I agree with is, from my understanding of the history of divestment from the 1990s through modern day, is that it is just, I'm not dating my race because fuck these Negroes. I probably can't say that on YouTube. I'm gonna watch my mouth. Okay, so so I will say it does have that history of it being like, I don't want to deal with anybody in my race romantically, period. I will say I changed it for myself, and I said I'm socially divested, meaning that like I no longer invest my time, invest my resources, invest my education, invest anything else into blindly helping Black men. Now you can say it ain't got shit to do with anything, and that's fine. I'll take it. So y'all let me, what are we going to agree on? I can take the dictionary definitions, both of them, and we can move on.
Can you repeat the first part of the Urban Dictionary one?
Someone who dates outside their race because they think the race is better or superior to their own.
See, that second part, not necessarily because it's better or superior.
But the reason why I kind of agree is if you look at divestment in broad terms, right?
Yeah.
Of it not being specific to Black women in modern day, but all people saying that I don't date my race. We see it with Black men and how they date. Some of them choose to date white women, saying that Black women are this and that. We see it with other brown men that do the same thing with white women and say, I'm not going to date my own race because of this or that. We can see it sometimes with Asian women when they date white men, saying that they don't date Asian men because of X, Y, and Z. So for me, if we're talking about global society, I can see that. Yeah.
The only reason I disagree is because I don't think it's as conscious as they're making it seem. Like, I don't think that decision is as conscious as the definition is portraying it to be. To saying that I'm consciously saying I'm better in and of myself, and so I'm going to go over here because that's what's better. Like, that's the part for me that I feel like isn't what's happening.
The iffy part.
Yeah, like that's not really what's happening in these conversations. It like, yes, I agree on the social aspect. Like, I feel like we'd be a lot better off if we took more energy elsewhere and divested socially, like you mentioned. But that, I feel like that's
the definition that they gave us, though.
It's not right. It's not the one that they gave us. So working with the one that they gave us, I feel like that gives an implication that it's a conscious decision to say that I think that they're better, therefore I'm acting this way, and that's not necessarily what's happening.
Okay. All right, so I guess we can just go ahead and take it. I mean, I don't know what you would want to place it with, so I guess we're just gonna take it as it is and move on. Because
Facts and Snacks looks like she has something to say.
Okay.
I was just, I was just gonna say that I think that you are accurate about the fact that when some people are thinking about why they're using the term divestment, I don't think they are thinking about it in a superior manner. I don't believe that that's what many of them think, but I do think subconsciously that is what is actually happening. So that's the reason why I think that, it could go, but I say for this anyway, that since we've all kind of just explained our thoughts on it, I think we should be able to move on and at least have a relative understanding as to what we're talking about.
I mean, I feel like the things that we disagree with, we'll get into when we answer the meat and potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So the question that after that is, so what do Black women need saving from? If Black women do need saving, well, for what? What? I mean, I have ideas. And I can list my mine off, and y'all can add or subtract or what. So I came up with domestic violence, rape and sexual assault, femicide, and white supremacy. White supremacy including like anti-Blackness, fatphobia, medical and other systemic racism, and all that kind of stuff. So all that lumped into white supremacy.
I would say like financial illiteracy. And like the shackles that we've been held to with like the hood mentality, like all the things that come together with the hood mentality, like your relationship with money, your relationship with your family, your relationship with your environment, your relationship with schooling and education, your relationship with how you dress and how you engage with people socially and how you move, like all those things to me. And it's not something that's specifically explained anywhere, but people who like navigate life because of how they grew up. We've seen those people, and you can't even.
Like that's like 99% of people, but
right. But I'm saying the ones who operate based on their hood mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, I have a good friend from high school, and he likes to keep his cash liquid, which is fine. So we were having a conversation. He's like, I only got, 50 stacks in my account. I said, only? That's because to him, I'm over here, corporate cutie. And I'm like, I don't normally see that much in my account at once, but I'll see it eventually. And to him, because he's used to having a lot of money at once at one time, he feels like he doesn't have money. And I'm like, that's not you just got to shift the thought there. Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but because of how you grew up in the environment you had to navigate in, to you, your relationship with money is very skewed. And it's going to be very hard for you to build any sort of foundation for generations with that mentality. So I think when we have a lot of our Black men specifically who are around that and operate in that mindset, that hood mentality, it affects a lot of things. Like you said, all those things on your list plus some.
Okay.
That was my thought.
All right. You want to add anything?
You know what? From my standpoint, I think, if we're just speaking specifically to Black women, and in this context, even though obviously I do have a non-Black mother, but phenotypically and obviously raised and all that kind of stuff, I've obviously been part of the Black community. And I do identify as Black. So what I think that, Black women by and large throughout North America should probably need to save themselves a lot is to really divest from systems rather than talking about divesting from a Black man, for example, because at the end of the day, in my opinion, you can't divest from something that you don't already invest in. And, to be quite honest with you, a lot of the women that I hear talking about these situations have never really invested in anything other than the relationships that they're in. Which
listen, okay, because listen.
That'd be the part. That'd be the part.
I'm gonna let you finish. I'll come back to it. Sorry.
Yeah. So, so at the end of the day, I can appreciate, the upsetness that happens with inter-community violence, inter-community, concerns that just happen by and large, whether it's based on gender or if it's just the overall collective. But I also think that sometimes as we start kind of climbing up this corporate ladder, which, I had to check myself a few years ago about this as well. We start feeling like we're like an exception to the rule. And then sometimes we don't even see how we're also complicit in different ways to the system. And then at that point in time, like I said, then sometimes our optics are a little skewed. So then I think sometimes we end up applying them in a way where we're not necessarily working to even make the changes in the community that we want to see, rather standing on the sideline and then just kind of shouting out at everybody our opinions of how dysfunctional we think they are. And so, I'm not saying, of course, that, Black women don't have their own struggles, by and large, but what I can say is it gets a little disheartening when there is a very loud, specific, small group who seem to think that they're beyond reproach. And, sometimes they're not as open to hearing sometimes when they are complicit to some of the negativity. So in my opinion, I feel like the reason why they're like that has a lot to do with socialization. I think the socialization that we have as Black people in North America can be very impactful. It's the very thing that we don't opt into, but we are thrown into without our own permission. We've been raised this way from the time that we're small. We see other Black women, especially the older crowd, who thankfully, as we see some of the younger ones coming up, it seems to be a little bit better, but some of the older crowd is very immersed in, old school mentality, which, we know is counterproductive. As times change, we need to learn to readapt, right? So I say that what I think Black women need for saving isn't necessarily a person, more again, the systemic aspect of things. And that, in my opinion, will then help us be stronger to then do what we can to alleviate some of the damage that is happening to us, even though we know it's not going to be 100% perfect.
Also, before we move on, there is, at least on TikTok, and well, I'll say all social media, there is this sort of wave of Black women that are like jumping on the train of divestment. And I do see that a lot of them are just in there wanting to not deal with some of the things that are plaguing our community right now. They are still male identified, meaning they still center men, meaning they still think about what the male gaze is attracted to, what it wants, and how to leverage the male gaze to give them status. And so they think that I don't want to deal with domestic violence that may be at the hands of Black men. And because for all of these stats that we can go over, the Black community in this country, I can't speak for Canada because I haven't done the research, but at least in this country, for every single negative stat, Black women are getting it the worst. We're getting it the most. So for the DV stat, it's a higher rate in the Black community. For the incest, it's at a higher rate than in the Black community. For all of that. And then we also have to deal with our lack of resources in terms of finances, income, and generational wealth. So there is a push for Black women to say, hey, these things are a problem. But what I'm seeing with some women is that they're saying, I'm going to jump to white men and white men are going to save me. And they think that through the relationship, the community is going to change. So I will say that I'm seeing that. And so that's why I kind of wanted to have this conversation, because I think we can all agree centering men in anything that we do is going to be a recipe for disaster. So the main question on the list, and give me a quick yes, no, and a quick blurb of why or why not, is Swirling gonna save Black women? I won't go first. I'll let someone else go first.
Queen Pen, you want to go first, sis?
Yeah, nah.
Okay, so I'll go first.
No, that's my answer. That's my answer.
Okay.
That's your answer. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
I always joke with people about like my slang. Oh yeah, nah is nah. Yeah, no is yeah. So, but but no, and again, I think when Black women or Black men specifically are swirling, I don't think they're thinking about it as consciously as we're thinking about it now. I think very few people, when they do those things, think about it from this perspective. Now, me, myself personally, I am very, I'm very cautious on one, who I align myself to, and how, let me rephrase that. I'm cautious on who I align myself to, in the sense that I know that as a Black woman and someone who more often than not is put in an oppressed group, has to be mindful of those who I'm close to. Like, I can't die on the hill of Black love. Like, I can't, but however, if then I am in a romantic relationship with a non-Black man, I have to be mindful of the fact that they maintain the power structure in society and how that may impact.
I want to push back on that, because I think even in that answer, you're thinking about white men.
Yeah. Did I not say that?
She said, yeah.
But see, I guess
but that's not going to save me. But that's not going to save me.
No, I ain't gonna save you. But I'm saying swirling doesn't necessarily mean with white. It just means other races.
Well, I'm starting at the top. I ain't gonna start in the bottom of the middle.
Well, if you won't start at the top, you done missed a step. Okay, you got one more step to go.
To the Asian men? True.
But we're gonna talk right now.
Right.
But I'm glad. You know what? I'm glad that Queen Pen said that, though. I'm glad that was said. Sorry, are your pronouns they, them, or she, her? Sorry, I didn't hear.
She, her.
Okay. Yeah. I'm glad that she said that, though, because again, this is one of those subconscious things where we immediately think of white people the minute that we start thinking about swirling, and not to say that again that you think that they're just necessarily superior, but I think the reason why is because I think in our particular community in North America, even with us being biracial, that's typically what, you know what I mean? It ends up being, it's a lot of Black and white. So, I mean, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
You're right.
We're gonna get deep. We're gonna get deep into the non-white, non-Blackness. But we're gonna get there, though. We're gonna get there.
But my preliminary response is no.
Okay,
I don't think swirling will save us. I do not think that.
Okay. What you got? What you got?
Yeah.
So, can I go now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know that Coco has some stats, so I will try to hold off on some of the ones that I brought. But what I can say is this: no, swirling is not going to save Black women. And the reason is that with a lot of these statistics that happen, there's a lot of information that goes into extracting the data, but that data is not necessarily what people end up using when they're trying to use those as arguments. So for example, if you are somebody that doesn't want to be a single mother, in America, single motherhood is classified as somebody who is unmarried, divorced, or widowed. So obviously, when you're looking at the Black community, for example, you have a higher chance of being an unwed mother because most of us are getting pregnant between, let's say, 18 to, let's say, 29. Okay. And those are positions in the Black community overall. Where whether you are male or female, job-wise, many of us, because of the way that the system works, are not really in positions where we have access to much money. Many of us Black women ended up peaking in our careers usually after 30. You know what I'm saying? And same thing with some of the older Black men that we're dating. That's when they've essentially peaked as well. So if I'm going to look at somebody who's going to be, a wed mother, yeah, then it makes sense if I'm interested in marriage to be with somebody who's outside of the community if I'm having my children young. But if I'm having my children older, then that's where Black women actually have a higher rate of marriage, where some of the other races of women are now getting divorced. So, I mean, the reality is that you can get married so that you're not a single mom. But the question then becomes, are you still a happy married person? How happy are you married at 21 or 22 years old with a man who's around your age who acts like he's one of your goddamn kids anyway? You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of stuff that's not being discussed, and that goes right across all races. I have yet to hear one single race of woman prop up their man like they are so fantastic, you know what I'm saying, to be married to, you know? So that's kind of what my perspective would be, that there's a lot of skewed evidence, but ultimately no, because a man is a goddamn man. You know what I'm saying?
And I think to that point, especially, I've said it before.
I'm smart to talk now. Fuck that. No, I'm just
damn. Golly. Did you miss me? Shit. Okay, be for real. I was gonna say just to your point with that, and I've said it before on multiple platforms. There are a lot of wives who are single mothers, and we forget that these men don't always be, hitting on what they need to hit on. So again, to your point, if you're divesting and thinking that you're gonna get this unicorn of a man, Sade, you may not. But go ahead, Coco.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll say the short answer is no. And mine will say because men are the problem, not Black men. I mean, they are a problem, but it's not the Blackness part isn't the problem. It's the man part that's the problem.
Right.
So and also that this is a white supremacist patriarchy issue. Like they act like this because of patriarchy, because of how society has been shaped by these dynamics, and all men are subscribing to it. And look, until they decide to dismantle it themselves, or we decide to get some matches, it's gonna be what it is. So, but I didn't want to keep in mind that it is customized to our certain situation. So I think for our community, what exacerbates that is that we're living in a failed patriarchy. We don't have a community dynamic or interpersonal dynamics where the men are the leaders per se. Like there are these different conglomerates and groups, like with religious groups or like any community help groups, where the men may be at the forefront. But when you look at the community in and of itself, it's mostly ran by women. So we don't really have that on that level, on a community level. And then when it comes down to, your own personal family, Black people, we were, as far as economics and income and generational wealth, we have the least. So I think with Black women, we're kind of at this place where we're on paper living in a post-feminist society, right? You think about what white women are striving for. They want equality. They want to go to work too. They want to make their own decisions too. They want their own bank accounts too. And for the most part, unless we're talking about things ran by the government, for the most part, Black women have already been living that truth since getting off the plantation. We've always had to work. We've always had to have, for the most part, egalitarian relationships. But for whatever reason, our men wanted to subscribe to patriarchy. They wanted to subscribe to misogyny. And so they wanted inside the house to reflect what was going on in society ran by white people. And so that's kind of a dynamic we're dealing with too, where men want traditional women that they've never had. So, and then forcing, because I mean, we talk about men that are incels, involuntarily celibate, or men that are absentee fathers that leave or desert their families they may be married to. But there's also the men that stay in the home. And those are the men that are passing down the misogyny, passing down the sexism and chauvinism, passing down, gender roles and stuff. So I think that we have adopted some of the mental patriarchal stuff within our community, but on paper we function as a post-feminist egalitarian community because women are the breadwinners for the most part. For the most part, we take care of the children. So it's kind of unique because of our unique history, but we still have to realize men are the problem, and that whatever community you hop, skip, and jump to, you're gonna have to deal with patriarchy and sexism and chauvinism because that's what men have been told is their inheritance. So this next portion, we're gonna give the girls the game so that they don't get got. All right. We saw a recent article, and we can go over it if y'all really like to, from Psychology Today, about the men's being lonely because standards are raising. I would like to aid in the group getting larger by telling women how to spot these men, right? If you want to be in a relationship with a man, how to spot the ones that ain't no good. Look, I'm trying to have y'all be so good. I can see you walking through the door and know you ain't no good, okay?
Can I just jump in? I want to just make a comment, Coco.
Yeah.
I want to just say, I find that the indigenous community and also the Black community in North America are de facto matriarchal. And, and I think sometimes, because we haven't been conditioned to understand how to carry the matriarch in our community, based on the fact that there's so many different variables under the system, that I think what ends up happening is that sometimes we also internalize the patriarchy itself, and sometimes even become adjacent. We sometimes we get to gig in with some women and we're like, oh yeah, that's pick Nisha, but really listen, what we see with those type of women is that, and I know that some of them are really doing it with good intent, but a lot of times where they miss the mark is that they become almost so subservient that all they're doing is putting down women under the guise of whatever men have dictated. And I don't know about y'all, but I know a lot of men, and I study a lot of stuff on biology, and like, I don't know what can be said on YouTube, but let's just say, like, men, I don't think men were ever supposed to run shit. Personally.
Oh, no, they were never. Logically, I don't make They weren't. And I think that, to your point, even coming off the plantation, it's like a lot of Black women had to do whatever was necessary to survive. Whenever you go through even, let's say, other mammals, they always talk about, baby bears and their, mama and her baby cubs. You always hear about all of the orcas that are there. They stay in their matriarchs, kangaroos. You hear it all the way down the line. And the reality is that, when it came to women in general, we're supposed to have our children with us. And let's be realistic, there's still matrilineal and matriarchal societies that still exist within societies that are functional. But a lot of times what they've had to do is really put their foot down and kind of fight back against the system to maintain them, which is unfortunately why some of them have diminished over time, because the patriarchy has gotten too heavy and they've unfortunately had their stuff ripped from underneath them. But I almost believe that if we were to figure that out, which I don't know if we ever will in this society, but I think if Black women understood their strength, then we would really not give a about men, because we would be raising our kids and we'd be just picking the men that we want and then sending them along, once sunup comes, like, get out of here. I'll see you tonight for my gig. You know what I'm saying? Other than that, just be gone. Because I'll be honest with you, there is an Asian matriarch. I can't think of the name. And if I did, I'll be honest with you, I didn't study it enough to know how to pronounce it. So I don't want to offend anyone, but they literally say they go and they pick the man that they want to date. If they end up pregnant, they ask the man, do you want to be around? And if he says no, she's like, bye. And if he wants to be around, she's like, all right, here. And he's only allowed on the compound one sundown to sun up. After that, he has to get the out. That's it. Get out of here. But men still have some rules. Like, for example, if anybody passes away, they bring it over to the men and the men take care of all the funeral arrangements. So there's still roles, but the women are the ones that do everything. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's amazing. But like I said, I don't think we're there yet in our own
our own journey right now.
We're not there. And I think it's because, one, when you think about the natural order of things, it doesn't make sense that women are subservient to men. If there were going to be a subservient gender, which I don't believe in gender, that was made by white folk too. But if we were to have a subservient part, it would have to be the man. They can't procreate. Without a womb, without a vagina, you can't do anything. So if you have a penis, you are the protector and the provider, because guess what? You have to protect and preserve the human race. That's why you see in prides, they like to say, oh, the man is the king because there's so many lionesses. No, they show you these extra men are useless. We only need one. And we'll get together and we'll raise our cubs together and we'll protect them together. And the man can go out and hunt and bring us back some food. And if I need to get down and get us some food too, I'm going to go and do that. So, I mean, when you think about it, like white supremacist patriarchy, like way back, back before Magna Carta, back when they was, still mutating. We'll not talk about that. But way back then, the earth wasn't controlled and dominated by men. They serviced who could create the people. So I think the reason why we're kind of like at this juncture is like, one, for Black women, we don't want to fully step into that and take the power, because guess what? We're already doing it. We're doing it, but mentally we're lusting and we're pining after being like other women, because other women, their men subscribe to patriarchy and they actually have something to show for it. Our men subscribe to patriarchy and we still have to go out to work and be the head of household. So it's kind of like this thing where we're actively doing one thing, but we haven't in the mentally from all of us, especially the men folk, because we're still trying so hard to follow the men. Like us as an entire group, we're still like, I really wish men would be the strong leaders I want them to be.
Yeah, and they're just not going to.
Right. And so if they're not, why can't we just fully step into all of our power?
That's exactly
we're already doing it.
I really feel like we're operating in some sort of pseudo patriarchy, because whenever like I see stuff get done, we the ones doing it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, for not even being funny,
I will agree with you.
I really feel like this is some sort of like matrix patriarchy that doesn't really exist. Like,
patriarchy, girl.
Like for real, like red pill, blue pill. You want the collard greens or the yams? Like, which one are you gonna get?
You know,
because honestly, like I think of all the times that like you need stuff to get done, you go to the woman in the household. I think of the movies. I'm thinking of sitcoms. I'm thinking about all this. Like, yeah, they'll make it seem like dad has the last word, but dad really got the information from mom, and he goes, if mom's not happy, he gonna say what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, and so if she not with it, he not gonna go with it neither. It wasn't, and like I feel like, yes, we want to say like I don't disagree that we're operating in the patriarchy, but I also feel like, especially in like Black and brown communities, a lot of the decision making is, and the operations and the logistics are on the woman, and everything's running by the woman. The man just happens to
but
be
that's not seen as power under patriarchy. Under patriarchy, that's servitude. And if you think it's servitude, it is servitude. But if you think of it as powerful, it's powerful. Because honestly, if you weren't here, you said, I'm not doing any of this, the household would crumble.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It'd be the house.
Listen, let me tell you something. I don't know, Queen Pen, if you have any children, but I think
we're childless and old and dried up and hit the wall.
I think what ends up happening for those of us Black women who do have children, we've recognized that we are socialized in the school system, first of all, to kind of put you on a path that, either you're going to do technical or professional. A lot of women end up going more professional, right? Yeah. And the problem is that in school, you're literally socialized the same, but then once you hit a certain age, all of a sudden women are just supposed to be moms.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, a lot of the younger women coming up are now saying, it's not even so much of a race of men as it is, I want to compete in I want to compete in capitalism because I want to make my money, and I can't do that if I have children. And I'll tell you guys a little bit later how even the Roe v. Wade kind of ties into all of this stuff as well. But the reality of it is that that's what's happening right now, where a lot of Black women, more specifically, are saying, hey, and it might not necessarily be that they're basing it off of truth, but they're basing it off either their experiences or anecdotal situations where they're like, you know what, in thought, if I'm going to end up being someone that's not going to have a co-parent, at least minimum, like I really don't want this experience because it's going to take away from me being able to do my careers. Hence why I said earlier, a lot of Black women are peaking after the age of 30. By that time, some of our kids are school aged.
Yeah.
Then we have the ability to kind of get into the market and start, competing at a different level. And once we start doing that, it actually brings about some type of semblance that we feel now that we're actually doing something. Because before that, regardless of the male situation, before that, a lot of Black women are constantly pushing, going from the bottom and trying to bring themselves up and constantly being hit with a wall. As some of you guys might know, I do employment law. And again, the majority of the people that I service are Black women. I can tell you on a regular basis, like one woman alone this week, she might even be watching this. Don't worry, sis, I won't mention your name. But she unfortunately was terminated twice in a matter of 2 weeks from 2 different employers. And like I said, when you start pulling out the details, Black women get treated horribly, especially when they're being terminated. I have another client that came to me most recently, and I've got all the evidence showing how she was praised all the way through and even offered she tried to negotiate a higher salary. And they said, okay, wait till you pass your probation. She did her probationary period. They told her how much they loved her, kept dragging her on. And then all of a sudden they call her in and they fire her. And she's asking them, because it's in a Zoom call like this, she's asking them, what exactly did I do? Oh, you got an attitude. There's so much hand holding, just straight disrespect. And my girl went off on them, right? Because rightfully so. But the white woman, of course, that was in there, I'm not taking this. And she left the meeting and then came back to then basically tell her that, you're unprofessional. And like I said, I don't know if I'm going to get a copy of that, but I would love to, because once again, this Black woman didn't deserve any of that. But what it came down to is the white woman didn't like the fact that she felt like, oh, well, you're being insubordinate to me. And a lot of us Black women don't see insubordinates the same way, because a lot of us have been grown and taught to be direct with our words. So a lot of times we're not being rude. Most times we're just saying what we say, you know what I mean? But to white people, they think, oh my God. So like I said, I have seen all of these things. And like I said, Black women are having a harder time competing in the capitalist society with respect to money, and then also being the ones that have children at home. It's hard.
All right, y'all. We got to get into giving the girls the game so that we can raise these standards.
Oh, Lord.
All right. So the first question, and I just need a yes or a no, right? Do you agree with Black women opening up their dating and relationship options?
Yes.
Okay. Personally, no.
All right. I would say yeah. All right. So, okay. So I guess I'll just be a conversation with me and Queen. Like, how do Black women open up their options? I guess I can go first so you can marinate on that.
Okay.
So when I say open options, I don't mean exclude people. This is not a conversation on not dating somebody. It's a conversation on opening up options to other people that you may not be opening your options to. And when I mean that, I mean everybody. So when I say that, I further mean other ethnicities of Black men, non-Black men of color. I'm gonna need some of y'all to check your heterosexuality, because some of y'all are in the LGBTQIA plus community. And when I say that, I don't just mean gay, bisexual, or transgender or queer. I mean, some of you may be asexual. Some of you may be gender fluid. Some of you may be gender queer. We don't know. But I feel that, we talk about compulsory heterosexuality when it comes to men, but with Black women, yeah, okay. So I also will say, check your homophobia and your transphobia. Some Black women think that I don't know if I want to go down this aisle, but some Black women
Pivot.
I don't want to.
Pivot.
I'm a poke it. I'm gonna leave.
Okay.
Some people exclude certain kinds of Black men that subscribe to the LGBTQIA community that like women. And Black women will exclude those people, even if they are Black men, because they have internalized misogyny, internalized homophobia, biphobia, transphobia. You think because a man may have laid down with another man, that makes him dirty. You need to go to therapy and get that worked out if you think that a man touching another man is dirty. Or that you think that he may be feminine. And if that's the case, you need to go get that worked out, because how do you think, why do you view femininity as it's packaged to us as something that's negative? So when I say open options, I mean open all of your options. I also say because good Black men, good, the ones that don't partake in misogyny, that check problematic behavior, that aren't going to put their hands on you or harm your children or leave you to be a single mother without no father for your kids, those are in short supply.
Very much so.
Yes, there are Black men that believe in taking care of their children and believe in being a husband. Those men can also believe in beating your ass and your kids' ass and passing on misogyny down to your son. So the next set of questions after Queen goes is, we're going to talk about having standards, boundaries, and expectations, what the fuck that looks like, how to implement them, and how to move. All right, go ahead, girl. What you mean? How can Black women open up their options?
So I'm just going to piggyback on that.
Okay.
Because I've come to you many a times in distraught.
Honey. Full shambles.
It's shambles because, like, my thing is, more often than not, especially Black women will want to say that because they're Black women, they can't be discriminatory against these groups of people. And that go and it was very hard for me to be respectful in a lot of the conversations that I had on social media and in my group chat.
I mean, because I will say before you finish, you didn't have to start them fires, but
they started it. They started it. For reference, facts and snacks, I am the one in the group chats who don't really agree with everybody else. Like
She's that one. Okay.
We're all the disagreeers here.
Yeah, I don't agree with nothing that's usually said in the group chat. And it's just like I'm the super woke person, but not the woke person who just speaks just to speak. I'm only spoken when I'm speaking, So okay. Yeah. Anyway, so when I'm talking about opening up preferences with that as well, I think, like, yes, all the things that you mentioned, but, like, ask yourself this, like, if you only are not dating that person because of blank, why? And then keep asking yourself that, because in those discussions, when I asked, hey, why wouldn't you date a bi man? Oh, they're fast. What? How do you know that?
Are straight men not faster?
I know, we be laying down with lots of them.
They are disgusting. Oh my God. First of all, it goes against my religion. Most religions are based in homophobia anyway. And next, okay. Oh, I wouldn't like, if you are not dating someone because of blank, and then you can't answer the question, it is discriminatory. If someone wouldn't hire you for that same reason, you'll be ready to sue. You'll be ready to call Al Sharpton, Dr. Umar, all them. You would be ready, right? Like, I'm serious. You will be ready to do that. You'll be ready to call all of them to say, I've been discriminated against because I'm Black. I've been discriminated against because, I'm bisexual. I've been discriminated against because I'm fat. So if you can't answer that question, if none of those things can be answered in a way that talks about them as a person, no, it's no longer a preference, my dude. It goes past preference. And I think that's something that Black women especially need to get past. You're over here. What does a bi man look like? What does he look like? Hello, because the man you went
Apparently the answer is he looked gay.
right. What does he look?
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna just be honest. I think a lot of times what some of these homophobic women are really not trying to say is that they're afraid they're gonna end up with HIV, like as if it only exclusively belongs to, you know, men that
That
other
fear is
men.
kind of irrational to have, because according to the numbers, we are already there dealing with a seemingly heterosexual man.
Absolutely. And I will say this very quickly, and then, you know, you guys can continue until it's my turn. I dated somebody who was bisexual, and you know what? It was a great experience. He wasn't necessarily the greatest guy. At the end, I ended up not, but that had nothing to do with his sexuality, his orientation.
Exactly.
And I would absolutely, yeah, I would absolutely.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, but I'm also not somebody who's going to come to the conversation being disingenuous about a lot of stuff that way. So anyway, sorry.
And so thank you, but my main point with that is we need to open up our preferences, mainly because at the end of the day, if all of these preferences are rooted in discrimination and stereotypes, what's the point? Like, if you want a good person, if you want to have a family, if you want someone who's genuine, if you want someone who respects you, all these preferences don't negate that from happening. So like when I have these types of conversations, to me, it's just very sad to think that a lot of women in my circle are going to die on the hill of cisgender Black men because of these preferences, just, you know, in the name of Black love. And not to say that you can't achieve that, but I'm saying that Black love may be a bi man. That Black love may be someone who's non-binary. That Black love may be someone who's trans, that, like, whatever, but it's still Black love. So you're sitting here, you're wanting these cisgendered, no kids, 6 foot, loves the Lord, can catch the Holy Spirit, got good credit, make 6 figures, got a dick the size of a jackhammer, can go 50-11 rounds. You're not gonna find it, sis. I'm serious.
I know. Another thing, I know you are. I know.
And these are the things that I be hearing these conversations daily. Yeah, I can't, girl. He does not exist, because one of those things is, oh, he's probably misogynistic. He's probably homophobic. He probably has a horrible relationship with money. He probably is uneducated. He might have been a felon a couple times. Not to say that these things are making them a horrible person, but if you're going to cancel one thing out for the other because of a preference, what's the point? So like Coco started out with, your preferences, if they're rooted in anything that's discriminatory, and that's the hill you're going to die on, what does that say about you? Like, that, you know, what does that say about you and how you feel like you need to be related in society? Again, goes back to white supremacy and the patriarchy and all the things. White people just need to go on. But anyway,
so can I jump in and give my dissenting thoughts?
Yes, please.
First of all, I want to say that I agree with both of you on that. And I want to make myself very clear that the standpoint that I have has very little to do with understanding that, you know, humans of any race can share similarities, can get along, can find love. Mine is very much a social, political, and especially being biracial. You know, one thing I can say is that a lot of these interracial relationships really forget about the children they're having, because at the end of the day, all of us ain't lying, guys. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny that there's all these people in interracial relationships acting like as if love is love. You know what I mean? Race doesn't matter. You know, I don't see color. And then you have the black person in the relationship that's like, well, not my partner. But then you have all of these biracial children that let's say for this one, Black and white, more specifically with white mothers, by the way, you know, that again, we're not lying about the experiences that we go through. You know what I'm saying? We're not walking around trying to, you know, separate ourselves even from the white side of our families simply because we just hate them all. A lot of times we have been subjected to very unfair experiences. And like I said, I've been lucky enough to be raised with my Black father. My Black father was also an immigrant. And when I asked him, you know, years later, because my dad's been with a Black woman for over 27 years, he never had a discriminatory lens of, oh, I only date a non-Black women. My dad's never been like that. But like I said, he did share with me that, you know, him coming from another country where colorism was a thing, but racism wasn't, because their proximity to whiteness was very small. he got here and like all these white women are flocking at him. And he was like in his early 20s. He thought, okay, great. He just felt like, oh, this is amazing. But he said, as he learned more about racism and then had relationships with more specifically white women, it started to dawn on him like, wow, this shit ain't cool. And I say all that to say that I asked my father, like, why were these situations with my mom's family after my mom passed away? Why did you let us go there? Why did you let us experience these things? And my father said, because I also understand that, like, that's your mom. And like, she would probably turn in her grave if I didn't allow you guys to go to her family's house. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, not to say that my family was very overtly racist, but their behaviors were very covert. And my brother and I knew all the time growing up that they had like anti-Black bias. And like I said, what do you do when you're a child? How do you fight something like that? So now that a lot of us are older and now we're talking about these things, like I said, it's one of those things where some of the people who are interacting and are deciding to have children are really not thinking about what the optics are for those kids that they're having and what this looks like. So that's one of my reasons why, again, I'm not saying people can't date who they want, but why I don't necessarily encourage it. The second reason why is this, and I know this is probably going to be very unpopular, but follow me with it. I feel like nowadays, a lot more even individuals like myself who are biracial are being told that we are not we're not Black, we're biracial. I find it a little disturbing because, you can go anywhere around the world and find multiracial women who look like me. Do you know what I'm saying? And it has nothing to do with them even being mixed race. You're not going to go to Europe and find a woman who looks like this, who doesn't have some other ethnicity or ethnic racial background in them. Like I don't look white. Okay. So it's disturbing to me that I've heard now some people that have interracial relationships calling people like me or their, some of their children that are even lighter, that we're not Black. So then it bothers me because I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why would you as a Black person, like, go out of your way to have children that are not going to be Black? In my thought, you're destroying the Black community. You know what I'm saying? And now I take issue a lot of times with some of these mixed race or biracials that are very white presenting, that are struggling for their lives on TikTok, for example. Every other day and twice on Sundays, they've got a whole video dedicated to their Black parent because they're trying to prove how Black they are. They don't understand gatekeeping and want to act like gatekeeping and racism are the exact same things, which they're not. So they tend to say things like, I've experienced racism from both sides. And I'm always like, no, you haven't, stop. And so I think all of that being said, are we trying to destroy the Black community? Like, why is Black love being seen at this point in time like it's so trivial? Now, that doesn't mean I'm not saying don't go find happiness, because at the end of the day, Black women can go and make babies with non-Black men. And if they were to bring them back into the community, I think that would be perfectly fine. Because let's be realistic, most Black children, when they're with their Black mothers, are going to be in the community where their mothers are from. I think that's fine. But I'm just saying, that's not a lot of times what ends up happening. What happens is biracial children are being raised in a system of white supremacy. And a lot of us have a lot of undue influence to kind of more align white. And then what happens is, again, to me, it's a destruction of the Black community. And then what happens is you get a bunch of people who are not even Black, but they have Black in them, saying things like, oh, I suffer the same type of racism, or, I'm Black as well. My Black is beautiful. And to me, it bothers me because Black is something that is not only just cultural, but it's also the way in which people look. And it is the thing that unfortunately people have been discriminated because of. So I feel like in the absence of these conversations politically, I don't think that white people, and most of the time, again, non-Black people, have the due diligence and care for their Black partner that they should before entering into them. And until that happens, then I won't encourage it. But once it does happen, then I can change my position. That's how I feel.
Okay. So we on the Seattle Lights, whenever we feel like, starting back up and get off hiatus, we're gonna do an episode on the differences between race, ethnicity, and nationality. So I think one of the disconnects is, my eyes watering. One of the disconnects is historically mixed children were considered Black in America and wherever slavery was had, because the biracial child was birthed to the mother. So for a while, those kids were Black because they were treated as Black, no matter what they look like. Now, I did have a thought, and maybe someone can find me a picture, but I realized there were a lot of children that were 1/8, 1/4, 1/16 Black that were enslaved. I'm like, how physically wise, I can't picture that. So I'm gonna need to see something. I don't know if it needs to be a painting or whatever. I don't know. I need to see it. Because for me, it doesn't connect. So I think when it comes down to biracial children, specifically white and Black children in the Black community, one is within the Black community, we have to understand that there's Black as the race and Black as the ethnicity. So down here under the border, Black means two different things, but we often talk about it in the same space, even though they're completely different. So there's Black as race, as if I'm walking down the street, what do I register you as? And there are a lot of people that could be genetically mixed that look Caucasian. So for that purpose, racially, you're white. Your culture, your actual genetics don't actually matter. And there are people that, could be genetically mixed and look like me. Walking down the street, they're going to say Black. And I would say someone that looks like you walking down the street, I can clearly see you're either biracial or racially ambiguous, more on the biracial, darker skin side. You look like you could be 75%. And I say that to say I have lots of mixed people in my family, and it's a thing. So what's happening is we all can agree that culture is passed down through the mother. The mother keeps the food, the music, the articles of clothing, the traditions, all of that. So when you have someone that may racially look white, raised by a white parent, trying to enter our ethnicity and say they're the same, first of all, feature-wise, it's not the same. Culture-wise, you're Caucasian. You're white. I don't know if it's French, German, or whatever, but you're not a Negro. So I think in some of these conversations, it will behoove us to actually parse out, are we talking about race or are we talking about cultures and ethnicity? Because those two things are completely different. We can both be Black, but I'm African American and someone else is Nigerian. We're not the same. We may look the same, but we don't share the same ethnicity. And so I think sometimes, I'm not sure if some biracials that look not biracial are not Black, if they're trying to be included in the race or the ethnicity. And that I refer to is, who is your mother? Where did you grow up?
Right.
Yeah. And even someone like me, if I'm adopted by white people, racially I'm Black, ethnically, no, I'm not. So it's kind of like that weird kind of dichotomy where it's like, we're kind of having two separate conversations in the same space, but we're not being very clear about what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
So like for me, with you look for me, I wouldn't think that you were Black per se. I would see you and think that you're mixed. But for you, you were raised with a Black father and a Black stepmother. You're Black, like whatever ethnicity your stepmother and your father is. I don't know where your father came from, but whatever ethnicity they grew up in, that's where you belong because that's what you were raised in.
Right. Well, I just want to say too that, I was raised with my father. So, I didn't have my upbringing was not white. Like if there was any type of influence, it would be, again, extended gatherings with my mom's family or from society, and that's where I think sometimes too, that a lot of mixed race or biracial people that have white mothers, like a lot of times my experience is very different from them as well. You know what I'm saying?
And that's also weird for me too, because like the mixed people in my family, they usually are more engrossed into our side of the family. So like when we have giant family gatherings or any familial things, like any pop-up dinners or anything, their white mothers and their white parents, their grandparents would come to our family stuff. So for me, it's like, and I guess it's kind of like the disconnect I think we both are seeing with like the biracials that have white mothers is that they're kind of not growing up in their mind, in their marginalization. Like they're not really in close proximity to that because a lot of Black men, at least down here, because like your father was a first generation. Oh, I met a white woman. We've been dealing with this since the plantation.
Right.
So it's like we on generation 100 of we want some white women's. So
yeah, no, I
so
get
for
it.
us, it's a little bit different. And it's like when Black men usually date, I'll say more often than not, there are some Black men that say, no, I'm staying connected to my Blackness no matter who I'm with. But there are a lot of Black men that intentionally mate and date with white women to have mixed babies and to have their mixed baby grow up in whiteness. They don't want to bring their mixed baby around they Black side of the family. So I think that's kind of the part where it's like we're kind of like, well, that may be the disconnect. Like, why would you not want your Black child that's going to grow up, even if they don't grow up as a Black person, they're at least brown.
Yeah,
they're not white, but at the very minimum, they're at least brown. So why would you not want to have your child grow up in that kind of culture so that they can see and learn about the racism, see and learn about the cultural garbs, the music, the clothing. And that's kind of like the disconnect. That's at least for a lot of the mixed kids, their father to begin with was anti-Black. And then they go with a woman that confirms their anti-Blackness because for whatever reason in his mind, he's thinking, oh, I'm going to get in some white cooch. That means I'm going to be close to being a white man. And that's all I ever wanted. And it's like, no, what's going to happen is you're going to go with this racist woman and create a brown or Black child that's going to experience the world as you do and not like their white mother. And you're going to leave that up to the white woman to explain that to them?
Right. And that's exactly the reason why I said that, you know what, if my politics would align anywhere, it would make more sense for Black women to date out and have the children and bring them in than the opposite way. Because I'm just going to say this, and then, you know, we can move on from what I'm about to say, because it's probably a different topic. As much as I love Black men, they're not race loyal. They're just not. They're just about hitting ass. You know what I'm saying? And like, again, another day for another conversation, but I can even
we'll have it.
I can even say that even, you know, some of the Black men that I have dated, which thankfully, you know, I have only ever really encountered two like severe sellouts. And like I said, they were not dated any further, but, you know, even some of the guys that I have dated that have white children's mothers, you know, we like my partner right now who's probably watching this, his children are growing up now, but you know, we had conversation about that, and it just was kind of like, you know what whoever liked me, I liked them, you know what I'm saying? Like it to him, it didn't matter, you know what I mean? But you know, he has expressed some things to me about growing up with those two women as his kids' moms. He actually raised one of his daughters, but you know, needless to say, the other one is a complete tyrant. She does not care about Blackness at all. But that, like I said, that's another conversation for another day.
we could talk about it. Yeah. So let's get into these last couple questions, and then I'll probably have some time for anyone that wants to come up in the audience to ask questions or add to the conversation. The first question is a yes or no. So do you believe Black women having a set of standards, boundaries, and expectations is useful?
Yeah, I do.
She's thinking real hard. It's a yes or no. It's a yes or no.
Nah.
Oh, so before we move on, because I said yes, why would you say no?
Because I don't feel like, again, when we have those set, you know, expectations, boundaries, and whatever, I don't feel like we're really thinking about where they've derived from. Like how
we don't get into that after the second question.
Yeah.
But it's like, so if we were having a conversation and we were all discussing, you know, what standards and boundaries and expectations were, right? And we realized that's a personal thing, right? And that's constant. So whoever you date, wherever you go, they come with you. And if someone doesn't meet them, you move the fuck on.
Yeah.
Would that be something that you think Black women would find useful in our dating endeavors?
Yes and no.
What's the no part?
The no part is because I feel like we're so stuck on our alignment to appeasing men. And so,
but that's what I'm saying. Your standards, boundaries, expectations are yours. They're not based off the male gaze. It's based off of what you want.
Yeah, for me, because I've taken the time to unlearn a lot of stuff.
For you, that's what I'm saying.
For me,
no,
yes.
I'm saying if every Black woman were to have adopting, like, I have these standards, I don't budge. I expect these things. If I don't get them, I'm not gonna budge. Then I have boundaries. If you violate them, you gotta go.
But what are they based on?
You have to answer the question first. We're gonna get there.
I said no.
Okay, well, anywho. So I say yes. And I say yes. And the question that I have, I kind of missed the question. So I guess we can go over examples of all three of those things. But the follow-up question is, how do Black women stick to their standards and boundaries and expectations?
Okay, can I go first?
Yeah.
So first of all, I say yes because I go to therapy. Okay. I needed to work the last probably 20 something years into my 40 years on my anger. So you know what? Yes, having setting boundaries and expectations and things like that, I realize is important for the reason that you explained. It's not for other people, it is for me. Okay. And I do think that there are some things that are negotiable, that are relative in relationships, because you can't really walk in with like something that's just completely linear. A lot of times you have to understand that there are going to be variables and things might move, and you've got to be willing to adapt. But for the most part, if there is a non-negotiable, we really should not. And it doesn't matter what race of man or what ethnic or gender, it doesn't matter what it is.
Talk about it. Okay.
It's really just for us, because at the end of the day, if something is important and there's something that we consider to be of value, then at the end of the day, don't go below it. Because here's the thing, once something does end up happening that you were trying to prevent in the first place, you are going to beat yourself up. And that's a lot of times what pulls into a lot of our low self-esteem. You know what I'm saying? Because now we realize that we went back on something and now we feel played. You know what I'm saying? And then sometimes the line gets blurred where we don't even know sometimes that we're actually projecting our own misfortune that we now realize that we've been part of. We kind of project that onto other people at times, rather than like sitting back and taking some real accountability. So it's probably best to not veer off that path if you absolutely have something that just does not work for you. And again, I'm just going to give a quick example when we talk about being a single mother. I'll be honest with you. I'm married. I don't like my husband. I've been separated from him for 5 years. I probably won't get divorced because I enjoy the benefits that I get from physiotherapy, et cetera, et cetera. If I pass away, the place that I live in, he can take it over while our kids are underage. But outside of that, no, I don't. My ex could not even look at me. He can't even come near my doorstep. Okay. But I say all of that to say, on paper, it wasn't important for me to be married before I had my children. Like, that wasn't a thing that I cared about. But if you are a woman who is like, by all means, I do not want to be listed on paper as a single mother, then you know what? There's a part that you have to play. We're not talking about people who have been subject to duress or, graping. We're talking about situations where there's some relative footing here. So again, if you value marriage, then it's probably best that when you start dating men who are also expressing to you that they want to be married before children come. Because if you end up getting pregnant, like a lot of us who just were like, whoopsies, you know what I'm saying? Then, the aspect of you getting married might not end up happening, or not even on your time. And then, like I said, you now have worked into violating your own boundary. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I feel it is important for us to figure out what our non-negotiables are and stand behind them.
So I say, look, I need Black women to get more standards, raise them higher, more boundaries, more expectations. I feel like all those things are very, very low with Black women. So I want us to work on that. And I also want us to work on unlearning centering men. You renege on your standards because you want to say you have a man that likes you, or you don't want to hurt someone's ego. And it's like, no. I will also say these are for you. You create them, you set them, and you stick to them. So I have a note here that says, when someone isn't meeting your standards, boundaries, or expectations, the call to action is not to force them to meet them. It's for you to move around. Leave. If someone isn't meeting your standards, if someone isn't meeting your expectations, if someone is constantly violating your boundaries, don't sit there and try to strong arm them to be the person that you want them to be. No, you find someone that checks the boxes. I'll also say, go to therapy. If you have the luxury of being in a position to go, be it time or finances or both. And I really want a lot of women to learn the difference between a red flag and you being triggered.
That part.
How you test it is if something happens for the first time and it makes you feel feelings, get through it, okay? Ask the questions you need to ask, okay? If it happens again, it might be a red flag. But if it happens once, and then again, also depending on your list, make sure you rank them. What are your non-negotiables? What are your, where you can, negotiate on, right? Have your list. If it's a non-negotiable or negotiable and they may have it, make sure what your reasons are good and in place. So, this is a negotiable because of this reason, and we can talk about it. But if it's a non-negotiable, there's no negotiation. There's no talking and hashing it out. No, you violated this. I'm leaving. For some of y'all, that could be putting their hands on you. I do not accept physical abuse. So if it happens, you leave. You have a plan in place to make sure you're safe and you get out. Or negotiable. I have, maybe for some of y'all, their income may be a negotiable. Maybe you have a window. I want a man that makes $50,000 to $150,000 a year. In our community, if you want to date Black men, the average median income is $40,000. We have to be realistic in our stuff too, as well. Realistic.
Which, by the way,
I will say
that's
I'll
the
give
thing.
I'll give an example. So I have recently discovered Ready to Love. I'm watching the first season. In the first season, it is the women. I was disappointed in the men they chose. Very disappointed in the men they chose. However, there's just one lady who has this requirement that the man that she's dating texts her every single night good night. There was one time a night that he didn't text her good night, and it was a problem, and it's been a problem for the past 3 episodes. Now, look, if that is your expectation, that's what you said it was. But for her, she was trying to argue that man down to see things her way instead of moving the fuck around. But also her friend told her, I don't think that's really realistic to make someone text you goodnight every single night, especially if they talked to you that day or something may have come up. So again, therapy, know what's a red flag and know what's a trigger. Because I'm going to let you know this right now as a married woman, long-term healthy relationships are one giant trigger for self-work. You just got to find the motherfucker that's worth being triggered over. So,
Queen Pin, I want to ask you something, sis.
Yes,
I noticed when Coco the lawyer mentioned finances, you were like, see, I want to say something before you answer that because I wonder if it's that. I'll be the first person to tell you guys, I don't actually look for men with money. Okay. And that's because for me personally, I found that men who have money like to try to negotiate my worth as a woman, and I'm not interested in it. I'd rather pay for everything myself, personally. So, and I also don't date men that are overly dominant. I'm not saying that my partner is a sub, but he's not a dominant man. And I like it like that. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about certain things. You know what I'm saying? So the reality of it is that there are a lot of us women out there that really have unpacked to the best of our abilities, patriarchy. And part of that, sorry to say, but capitalism kind of weaves itself in. So, I mean, you may decide to negotiate on some relative dollars, but what you may end up getting in the end is a better character. So, you've got to kind of try to mix and match. It doesn't mean just find men that are making 150K, because I'll be honest with you, some men that are making 150K still might not be the man for you. You know what
I'm going to answer before she answers.
Yep.
I'm going to answer before she answers because I know her like that. She caked up. and she ain't dropping her standard of living to accommodate
Okay.
nobody. But I'll let her proceed with that.
So my point to that, and this was the reason why I had leaned towards the no with the yes no, was because I feel like most of us, and just the vibe that I'm getting Fast and Snacks, is that most of us are on some type of healing journey. So our standards and boundaries and expectations are based on us and the perspective of us being on a journey to be the people that we know we are capable of being in a realistic and holistic world. However, a lot of these women are not there. That's why I'm like to say that any old woman should set any old boundary. Like you said, that woman, 9 times out of 10, it's unrealistic. When I tell you I'm in group chats with these women, and I'm like, girl,
Over a group chats.
I'm so bad. Because like you said, you know what I'm saying? They be wanting a man, you know, to have these 6-figure jobs. Now, I will say most of the men in my circle do make 6 figures. Like I can at least name 5. And I know them personally.
Look, don't
and I've
tell
known
them
them.
that most of them ain't shit either. So.
They're exactly, they're not at all. They're horrible. But they, you know, they my dude, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, but that, you know what I'm saying? But they're what it is, you know? So I'm just like, y'all be wanting these men and you're basing, girl, I'm gonna have to call you back. Hold on.
Lord.
I don't know how she got through the D&D, but you know, but I'm just like, y'all, like, yes, I want people to have boundaries and expectations and standards, but y'all are setting them and they don't be making sense. And half the time, y'all don't even have those for yourself, and they're for yourself. You're saying, okay, I expect that I have a man who makes this amount of money. Girl, can you balance a checkbook? Can you hold a budget? No. Like, so how do you expect to bring a type of man like that into your life and make it make sense for your lifestyle? When I think of compatibility isn't just, you know, finances. It's obviously, you know, you have to be physically attracted to somebody. You have to be emotionally attached to them, sexually attracted to them. You have to be culturally attracted. A lot of that is your socioeconomic status. I'm not going to ever be in the same circle with LeBron James. Like, that's not, you know what I'm saying? So for that reason, him and I are not compatible. I mean, he's obviously married, but you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying we're not compatible because of that. So I'm not in that circle. So that negates the compatibility. So y'all are setting these standards and expectations. You're not even gonna, it's not even, they're not gonna cross.
Go with me for a moment, right?
Yes.
So the reason why I brought it up is for us to actually have an in-depth conversation about what realistic standards, boundaries, expectations look like and what are examples. And when you see them, here's the green flags, here are the red flags. Because I also do notice, because, you know, I'm a sociologist of the group, that when women have standards, they're usually so superficial and so patriarchal. I have a man, I need a man that's over 6 foot. He need to smell good. He need to be dark and handsome. He got to wear this. He got to drive that. I'm not talking about those kinds of things. I'm talking about the standards and boundaries and expectations that are actually useful in a healthy relationship. Do you have a standard that says, I do not date someone who is a habitual liar? I date someone who knows how to effectively communicate their emotions. I have an expectation that my partner contribute to the household financially and physically. I don't let a man curse me out. I expect that he has emotional competence. You know, shit like that actually are, you know, going to help women.
See, those are the things that I ever hear though.
Right. So right now I want to bring those things up. So on the record, we can go back and say, look, as a grown ass woman, yes, it's okay. Yeah, we all want our man to be fine.
Right.
That fineness gets you in the door. After we're in the door, what else?
Right.
What else?
Right.
Okay, he has money. What else?
Right. He a 10, but he's
what
mentally
else?
Unstable. Like,
do you want to imprint that human in your kids?
Because generational trauma isn't just beating on somebody or touching somebody. Generational trauma is they're mentally unstable, and now you have a schizophrenic child.
Right. And
you
if
don't
they
know how to
are
deal with your life.
schizophrenic, if they do have mental health issues, do you require that they manage those things?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And, just whatever. Like I said, my partner's probably watching, but he's given me permission. My partner has a personality disorder. He has to go to therapy. That was a non-negotiable for us. Because let me tell you, that's just not easy to deal with when you are neurotypical and somebody is not. And again, there's obviously different levels to it. He's not somebody that is violent with me, but either way, it's something that is really hard to manage. And so, yeah, we both go to our therapies, but that was a non-negotiable for sure. So to that point, yes, we need to make sure, in my opinion anyway, that we have these things, not necessarily to be like punitive to people, but more so to say, okay, you know what is going to facilitate and support and encourage a healthy relationship between us.
Yeah.
You
And
know what I mean?
also, like, as much as, I as much as like these boundaries are for us, right? If they're not getting jiggy with it, you just gonna get lost. Also, I feel like people forget, like, you also have to communicate them in these intimate relationships.
Well, some of them I'll say, but some of them no. It's like,
right. Some of them, obviously, I shouldn't have to communicate that you're not gonna beat me. Like, that's something that I shouldn't have to communicate. But
okay, well, can I just say something? Y'all are gonna probably be pretty surprised by this, but I actually know, and again, they're not my friends, but I know some women, and they were all Black that I heard them from. It's only a couple, but they said that the way that they've been raised is that if a man doesn't beat you, then he doesn't love you. Like, there's actually people who believe that.
No, like, that is a really big deal in our community. And
look at her face.
I want to have this conversation. Well, I've been, observing other conversations being had and, listening to women and their stories about growing up with, their Black mother or their grandmothers and around relationships, and some film and stuff, that there's an issue in our community where other Black women will encourage Black women to stay in relationships with Black men and put up with habitual cheating, outside babies, putting their hands on you, R-ing your children, because you have a man and he in the house and he going half on the bills with you. Because you have a man, you need to take it. Just take it.
Right.
Just take it.
Yeah, and that's definitely socialized under patriarchy. Not to.
Yeah, it's not a.
I know that
thing,
exists in, obviously my other half of my family as well. Of course. Different. But what I can say is that was one of the reasons why, even for me, I had to explore polyamory. You know what I'm saying? Because, there's a difference between being polyamory.
I got you. Listen, opening up options, girl. I forgot all about that.
I was about to say you didn't bring it up.
Yeah, and so and the reason why it's not even because, which people think sometimes, oh, you just want to sleep with a bunch of people. It's like, that's not the purpose of polyamory for everyone.
Different,
you know what I'm saying?
They're
just
different
weirdos.
vibes. Yeah,
it's nice sometimes to be able, especially when you're heterosexual and you are dating men. Their emotional levels, due to their own socialization, are very low. I find often that men don't understand that they come to the table with like no emotion, where women are carrying the emotions for both. And then they wonder why, sometimes we have the adverse reactions to things that we do. It's not that we don't have logic. I don't know why some people think if you are emotional, you don't have logic. It's like, no, when you are emotional, the ability to be logical in that moment is hard to do. But people can be both logical and emotional. You know what I'm saying? But the reality of it is that, yes, dating heterosexual men, sometimes it's nice to have more than one of them, because some of them are really good in, physical ways, where some are better in emotional ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
What it is.
And I think, okay. She took a bio break. But, I think that's one thing that, like, we forget a lot of times. And, like, with the boundary, like, yes, they don't all have to be communicated. But I think, like, if you want someone to realistically, like homegirl who wanted somebody to, text them every night, I feel like that would have been something I would have said, hey, I like to hear it from you before I go to sleep at night. Send me a text. Like, that's an easy way to do that. Now, obviously, if he doesn't do that, she then has the choice to say, yeah, no, I told you about it, bye. But it's just like, how else would homie have known to text her every night that was something that was important to her? Like, that's not something that anyone would think about off bat, like, oh, every woman's gonna want this or else she gonna dip. Like, I wouldn't think about that off bat. Like, and I actually had that, and I'm sure Coco could attest to this. But like, I'm not the greatest texter. I'm actually pretty horrible. I will leave you mid conversation and forget to come back. And I might circle back a couple of days later. Hey, good morning. How are you? And I've had a lot of dudes like, really? Like, you just, yeah, what's going on? And they're like, you know what? Like, I had a dude the other day. He was just like, yeah, I don't do that. My bad. I got caught up. I was like, all right, bet.
Oh my goodness.
And
My anxiety, I have to respond. Like, I'm not even a big texter. I'm more of a phone person. But
yes,
like, I have to, if I don't respond to people's texts, it's like it'll every day for, you know, at least 5 minutes, it'll pop into my head and then it'll just bother me until I respond.
No, I'll forget. And I'm sure Coco could attest to this because I've done this for years. And it's not no shade, no tea. It's like literally, I will look at the phone, open the text, start to type, put it down. Oh, wow, I haven't eaten today. Man, what was that TikTok I saw? That was funny. Well, I need to drink some water. Did I take my meds today? And the text doesn't get responded to. And so when I said to homie, and that's really the thought process. When I said to homie, this was the situation. I talked to him on Tuesday, like afternoon. And then I went out with the girls that night. And then Wednesday I was on the road. And then I texted him Thursday morning. Hey, good morning. You know, I got caught up the other day. How are you doing? He was just like, I'm good. You know what? I don't think it's gonna work. You know, I'm gonna focus on da 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 da. I don't do that. I got caught up, you know, BS. I was like, okay. I didn't argue with him because I was just like, fine. You know, fine. You know, my man circled back. He was just like, I mean, I didn't mean to be disrespectful or hostile. I'm like, no, you said you don't do that. Yeah, you said I don't do that. I got cut up. I was like, all right, that's fine. I'm not going. Okay, all the best. What? He's still talking to me now. I'm like, okay, so sir, what's really good? But either way, I just feel like I was just like, I didn't know we're on that type of time, and I didn't know that's what you needed. So like, I think some boundaries do need to be communicated, but like you said, like some of them, it's like if it's a hard stop, like you mentioned, there's no communication that's needed.
I think it'll also add to that is that with some expectations, you need to like communicate that before someone fucks up, so that we're not having a conversation of remedying something that they did wrong that they had no idea. Now, sometimes you just don't, with boundaries, you just don't know until it happens. Mm-hmm. But with expectations, that should be communicated up front, and you let that person tell you whether or not they're okay with it, right? And if they're not okay with it, we gotta move the fuck around. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I will say that show was very interesting. I should probably like review that, but she did communicate that after it happened. But I think her problem was she was trying to argue for him to do it instead of accepting that he didn't find that it was worth his effort or energy to do that every single night. Or to be realistic and say, hey, there are going to be some nights where it's like, I can't.
Yeah.
So I guess now we are going to let's see.
While you're doing that, sis, I wanted to also ask at what point are you going to tell your stats? Because I'm interested in hearing them.
Oh, I didn't bring any stats.
Oh, you didn't? Okay,
didn't.
Well, will you allow me some time to share when we get through some of your stuff?
I there was too many of them, so I was like, I'm just gonna leave links in my how do I copy this?
Because I came prepared.
I love that y'all come prepared. I just have my head. So I appreciate both of you guys for being there. I feel like it comes from the law background.
Yeah, you know what? Let me tell you, Queen Pin. One of the reasons why I did, because I'm like right now I'm prepping for a trial, and so I took a little bit of time to do. But the reason why I did it was because part of the video that Coco showed, I most of the people on my page are people that I find that align with me. Yeah. But there were a few people that I ended up having personal conversations with. Even most recently, another sister I had 2 nights ago. And, you know, one thing that she said to me was that, you know, she really appreciated the fact that I provided some statistics. But even though my statistics aren't wrong, just that she feels that some, like, and I don't know if she was including herself, but some of them have a hard time moving away from their feelings. Mm-hmm. You know, and so me being, you know, the legal representative that I am, most of the time what I'm trying to do is, find facts, evidence, and you want to argue them and present them because you're trying to make your argument persuasive based on information you actually have, not just your feelings. So I think sometimes that's how I kind of operate in general. I don't want to stop anybody from having their feelings on their experiences, but I also want us to be intentional about what we're talking about.
Absolutely. We can't just be talking off the cuff and it doesn't even like align with anything that's factual. Because otherwise, right. I mean, you gotta.
I came prepared to counter
the. I stay with my notes full. So we want to go.
You want to do it? No, but you know what, sis? You actually said to me that there was only one thing that you disagreed with me on.
Yeah,
and so I did bring some stats about that.
So let me find a brief, like a condensed version. I'm fine with the PDFs and not necessarily a whole article, because let's see. Okay, so I have a couple. Let me pull them up, and then if anyone out there in the audience would, what did I do? Oh no. Okay, let me try this one. If there's anybody that would like to come up and put their 2 cents in or ask some questions, you're more than welcome to pop on the Zoom link. I'm trying to open these in so I can screen share. And then, so that is that. Okay. So was there anything specific that you wanted to have stats on?
Well, what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about, from your side anyway, I guess the femicide rates, just giving a little context for that. And then I also wanted to talk about, single Black motherhood, because I've got some stats on that as well. Okay, let me. And so, like I said, I came prepared because I thought there was going to be a divester or something to that nature that was going to bring, that's just what my thought was. Because again, I set my head up like a courtroom, but just ignore me. Because I came here like Coco the lawyer is Coco the judge right now. So I was acting like she was your honor. Okay. Bathroom break.
I think I'm going to have to get a more current information on the femicide rate, because I heard that the window got smaller. Gotcha. But the official from 2020 rate was every 6 hours. And in 2021, they said it went up to 5.5, and I'm guessing now it's at 5.
Okay. You want me to wait till Queen gets back, or do you want me just to share?
So you can share. I need to find something recent on the femicide rate.
Okay. Because what I actually found, what I was looking at, I'm just going to pull up my phone. What I found that was interesting was when they started talking about the femicide rates, they didn't actually break all of the femicide rates down just in that statistic, just alone on interpartner violence, right? Which is what, again, I feel like some of the people who are pushing this narrative to move away from Black men, and like I said, specifically that particular group of people, not everybody. I think sometimes they think that, it's Black men that are just unaliving the Black women, when the statistic actually shows that, first of all, that Black women did have it was like 4 times higher than, like, let's say white women. I'm just going to use white women for the moment, okay? And it said that it was the second highest murder rate. I don't know if I can say murder. Since 2019.
Say unalive over here too.
Okay, yeah, the second highest unaliving rate. So Black men had the highest at a 1% difference than Black women. So they were at 34% of an increase from 2019 to 2020. And what it said was that for Black men, they're actually 7 times higher unaliving each other. Okay. Whereas when it came to the Black women, they were at a 33% increase from 2019 to 2020, which is still alarming. But when they broke down those numbers, what I found actually pretty interesting was that white women actually had more intrapartner violence than Black women did. So white women were actually 33%. Black women were only 20%. We were actually lower in all of the numbers except for what they refer to as unknown. And what bothers me about these conversations, and I'll tell you why, is that when we're talking about unknown, people are assuming that that 45% belongs to Black men hurting Black women, but that's not actually true. And as an example, when we talk about the missing and murdered Indigenous women, for example, many of them have been missing and unalived, and they don't know who the perpetrators of these women are. But what we're actually realizing is that it's typically privileged people, read white men when I say that, and also people that are part of law enforcement that are actually doing, well, let's say allegedly, doing these unalivings, and they're not being caught. And so that's essentially what it looks like is happening to a lot of Black women as well, because between Indigenous and Black women, let's just use a relative totem pole. It seems like, you know, those women's lives mean less to society for whatever reason they feel that way. And so what happens is when these women go missing or they're unalived and they cannot find the perpetrators, it just kind of gets thrown into a batch of unknown. And like I said, there seems to be a narrative that that unknown is automatically Black men. And that's not true at all. So I feel like, you know, when we're trying to dissect some of these things, it's very important that we don't just look at numbers if we're going to use those numbers to then attribute it to another conversation we're having. It's important to have the context and the nuance part, because it doesn't mean that Black women aren't dealing with femicide. That's absolutely a thing. But what Black women are not necessarily being subjected to is that those high rates are just from interpartner violence from men in our community. That's not actually true. So, you know, that was one of the things that I wanted to kind of bring by. And if anybody is interested in that, you know, I do have it was actually posted in the Guardian, but it came from the CDC. So yeah, I do have the link on that.
This is the Guardian, and we can go over and read it.
Oh yeah, you got it right there.
I'm gonna take myself off the camera because I'm leaning forward. All right, hold on.
There's like a block in front.
So this is the unspoken epidemic. Homicide rates increase for Black women rivals that of Black men. My dog is barking. Wow.
Yeah, if you go straight down, you'll see the little perch.
Okay, so let's just read it together. And I read fast, so if I get too fast, let me know. Okay, so in 2020, a year of rising homicide amid a devastating pandemic in the US, the increase of the death rate of Black women rivaled that of Black men. As homicides increased nearly 30% nationwide that year, the rate of Black women and girls rose 33%, a sharper increase than every demographic except Black men, and more than double that of white women, according to a Guardian analysis of homicide data from the Census of Disease Control and Prevention. Killing of Black women and girls increased across age gaps from school-age children to senior citizens. Gun violence drove the increase, with 3/4 of homicide victims who were Black women and girls dying from gunshot wounds. The increase only worsens an unspoken epidemic that has been unfolding over years, advocates say. For the mainstream feminist movement, the new news media, to law enforcement, to community violence prevention organizations, many institutions have stayed silent about the crisis of violence against Black women, who are expected to care for others and often do not receive the same level of care, they say. Let me do this. So this is the table. So this is Black women and girls have the second highest homicide rate increase from 2019 to 2020. Okay, so the female homicides per 1,000 in 2020. So for every 100,000, there were 8 Black homicides. The increase 33%. For white people, it was 2 per 100K. For Hispanic, 2.1 per 100K. For Indigenous, 2.8 per 100K. And for Asian Pacific Islander, 0.9 per 100K. And that was for the female. Oh, Jesus. For the males, I'm not laughing because it's not fucking funny.
I know it's not. I know what you mean.
But
sis.
this is why I say this is an issue whether or not you are in a relationship or not.
Something's going on with these brothers, that's for sure. And
like ridiculous. But per 100K in 2020, there were 57.3 deaths for Black, 4.7 for white, 11.1 for Hispanic, 23.5 for Indigenous, and 2.8 for Asian Pacific Islander. The homicide rate among Black men in the US has long captured national headlines, but despite decades of Black feminist scholarship and organization on the topic, violence against Black women and girls continues to receive little attention, researchers say. The headlines are Black men and boys face astronomical homicide rates, or Black men and boys face an increase in homicide. That's deeply troubling. You might get to a paragraph that says, and so are Black women and girls, says Kimberly Crenshaw, a Black feminist legal scholar whose work was highlighted police violence against Black women. Often the data doesn't even get reported.
Absolutely. No, I said absolutely, sorry.
Yeah. So we have left, okay. I'm just gonna go get the charts. This is a lot. I didn't think it was this long. Let's go back up here. What does this chart say? Law enforcement say less likely to know Black women and girls' relationship to their killers. So I guess we just don't know. The offender relationship to the victim, 20% intimate partner, 11% family, 16% neighbor, 70%, I guess, stranger, 45% unknown. For white, it's 30% intimate partner, 15% family, 18% neighbor, 11% stranger, and 20% unknown. This tells me y'all care about these hoes. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Wow.
Yes, and
this part is what makes me mad, because that is almost half of them that we just have no information on. None at all. None. But go off, I guess.
Right. But and just to add to that, it's the same thing when again we start talking about solo households. I pulled up the statistic on that as well, and the 40% of white women are solo parents. You know what I'm saying? Where Black women were only 30%. And a further statistic actually showed that even in relationships with Black women where they were unmarried, Black men actually were far better and more contributing to their children, whether they lived in the home or not, than other races of men. And that's the reason why I'm saying date who you want to date. But sometimes these statistics, when they're not properly, kind of extracted, there's a layer of anti-Blackness that just makes all these assumptions. People love telling Black women how they're single moms and then say absolutely nothing about the overwhelming amount of white single mothers that are out there. White women have the highest level when it comes to even extracting social assistance, which, by the way, I'm not knocking anybody on social assistance. It's perfectly fine. But who is the biggest demographic of women who collect?
So I will say with stats, it's not about raw number, it's about the rate. So with that, yes, on paper, the majority of people that get government assistance are white people because the system was made for white people, right? So they're going to be the bulk of the beneficiary of any system, whether it's the welfare system or any other system that we have that, may protect businesses or churches, whatever. So they are the main beneficiary of that, but it's about the rate. And so one of the other things is this is just the homicide rate, right? Just the pure homicide numbers. When I'm talking about a holistic picture of what Black women go through in this country, we can't just say homicide. Okay, well, the joke is that it's not intimate partner. It's like that's not.
Oh no,
the entire picture.
I would never
right?
say that either. Yeah.
No. So it's like yes, the intimate partner death, but also you have to think about how gun violence in the Black community in lots of cities is very concerning. So even if I don't know this man, I could get hit by a stray bullet, right? And then we have to take into consideration of, okay, yes, we have a problem with absentee fathers more so than single mothers, because single mothers on paper is just unwed mothers. but there are a lot of Black men that are not a part of their child's life. And even if there are a father that may be in the home, they have to deal with things like this.
Right. But once again, the comparison here though ends up being, well, I find anyway that Black women who are having these conversations are trying to compare themselves to other races of women. And the reality is that if you are trying to measure up against another race of women who have privilege, who have some level of power over you, again, when it comes to their own raw data and numbers or whatever the case is, people like to forget that especially as you have more money, there are certain things that get to be glossed over. We see that all the time in the criminal system where you have, Black children, for example, that have higher rates in certain areas where somebody who has an affluent child, I think they even call it affluenza, they can get off their crimes and stuff like that too because of their access, or if their dad knows somebody who knows somebody. So, I mean, again, some of this information isn't enough, in my opinion, for us to apply it to measure ourselves against other communities. Rather, we should just be talking about the fact that it's happening in our community, and it should not be happening. That's how I like to kind of approach these things. Because again, it's easy to look at Black women and make fun of them because they're single moms, and not take into consideration all of the other things that play into why that may be on paper. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's kind of how I
bring it back to that. We compare communities because that's how data is presented with this. I have highlighted the part where it's like, number wise, we may have smaller numbers. We're only 13% of the population in this country. So we can't compare with numbers where we don't have the numbers. So the data, whenever we have raw numbers, we have to, go into comparing, where does it happen more often? And when it comes to intimate partner violence, Black women in our small community, small portion of the United States, it's happening more often. And that's the part we're harping on. It's not that there are more white women being abused than Black women. That's because there's more white women in this country than there are Black women. But if you are a Black woman, it's more likely you will encounter someone that is abusive than it is for white women. It is more likely that you will be sexually assaulted than white women. So it's like on paper with the numbers, the raw numbers, yes, it does seem like number-wise, they have more because they have a bigger demographic of the population. So when we're talking about things in our community, we have to remember that in this country and in other countries, we have different, populations of Black. But in this country, we're such a small portion of the population. But then because we are such a small sector of the population, things can seem, well, not seem, they are a bigger issue. Like we're 13% of the population and Black men are 40% of the prison population. How do you account for that? Obviously racism, but it's the things that happen, they tend to happen at a bigger scale within our community. So that's the part we're harping on.
Right now,
and then there's the caveats of Black women are we are least likely to date outside our race. So whenever you're talking about intimate partner violence and it also living, we're also very, very, very segregated in America. I don't know who put up this false news that segregation ended on paper. It didn't move people into different neighborhoods. We're not all living in mixed neighborhoods. So when we have the majority of Black people living in Black communities, even if it's a stranger assault, that is more likely to be from a Black person. And that happens in every single community. If you live in an Asian community and you are an Asian woman, it is more likely any crime that happens against you is going to be from an Asian person. If you're a white person, you live in your white neighborhood, it's more likely it's going to happen from another white person. So all of these things are not unique to the Black experience per se. But when we parse out the different groups, we realize all of these negative things are happening more often within our community than other communities. And it's a problem. It's a problem that Black men are killing Black men 57 out of 100K. It's a problem that they're unaliving women at, 20 something per 100K. That's astronomical compared to every other group.
Yeah, no, the 20% was based on the the 33%. But I just want to make sure that we're clear. You are accurate about the fact that there are going to be some stats that are based on like per person, and then there's other stats that are based on, percentage. Now, in line with this intimate partner violence one that you have up here, it says here that 18% of Asian or Pacific Islander women reported experiencing rape, physical violence, stalking by an intimate partner. So this isn't unaliving, this is assault. So what it actually shows is that 48% of American Indians and Alaska Native women, they were actually the highest. The next was 45% of Black women, then 34% of Hispanic women, and 37% of white. So again, when you start looking at some of these other things, the conversation shouldn't be to take away from the fact that these things need to be brought to the forefront. Like I said, it's the ideology sometimes that people think if I go outside, I'm not going to experience this, or I have a lesser chance. And what a lot of people don't realize is that these things are also going to be kind of on a bit of a curve, because if you are a successful, let's say, Black woman who has your own money, and let's say you're over the age of 30, your chances of dating out, you may end up finding someone even in another community who is probably a little bit more on your line and has a lot more to live for. They're a lot more mature. When you're going to go into younger aspects of the community, it's going to be a little different. Where do these Black women go when you are telling them to divest, but they are poor, unwed Black women with children? You think that the white community is just going to come along and like some man in the community
like,
is going to date?
Me, divesting isn't going into another community. Like, I'm not divesting to go link up with anybody. I'm divesting from Black men to stay within Black women. And I understand everybody is not on the same type of time as me. I get that. And it can be frustrating because I'm like, for me, it's like, if you think any man is going to be your savior, you're delusional.
Right. And that's where I'm kind of going.
So, but I also
we're talking about some of the ones that think that, again, this whole narrative of what is presumed to be divesting, it's to find someone else. And I'm just saying that there's a layer of privilege in there, because a lot of times people don't realize that divesting isn't simply just about race either. It's also about classism. You know what I'm saying? So somebody who, again, whether they are a Black woman or, a biracial woman or whatever it is, if they are from an impoverished section of the community, where are they going to go? Because again, somebody that might be let's say at a different class level is not necessarily going to come and be the savior that some of these women think that they're going to get. They are only going to maybe even date within Black men because they feel like that's the only access they have. You know what I'm saying?
I think I need to take a step back. I think for me, included in opening up your options is choosing to be single. Because if you are a woman that is living in poverty, I don't believe that marriage should be the goal here at all. Like, I don't think that necessarily you being in a relationship is going to save you from anything, especially in the Black community. We have seen through our grandmothers and mothers and great grandmothers and aunts and cousins that and this is why we have, that, I don't know if you saw my video earlier today where the guy was talking about how Black women are raised to be independent and Latin women are raised to be wives. It's like we already have been taught, at least for the past 4 generations, to be independent so that you don't depend on a man. And so if you are that woman that is in poverty and no man is meeting your expectations and you're not safe, choosing to be single may be the best option for you. But I also want to say, in the vein of all of this, whether you're talking about relationships or just as a Black person in the community, we have to be real about the reality of Black women. Yes, it does not feel good to say Black men are doing this, that, and the other, that it's negative. And it may seem sometimes like we're dogpiling, but they're still doing it. They're still participating in this problematic ass behavior. They're still participating in domestic violence, in stalking, in raping, in incest, in child abuse, in misogyny, in emotional abuse, verbal abuse. So in our plight, I want us to be real and prioritize not only what is in our best interest, but prioritize safety. And if you're thinking about your intimate partner relationships, have your standards of boundaries of expectations, have a support system where if you need to get out and you need to do it safely, you can do that. But be aware of your surroundings, Be aware of when things don't feel right. Be aware when people are moving kind of in ways that don't align with you and who you are. Because there are going to be some women that don't have the finances or the circle to quote unquote date out. If you don't ever leave your block, then no. And all you see is Black men, then no, dating out may not be for you.
Right.
But if you're not finding someone that is going to be a safe space for you, who's going to love you properly and to appreciate you and elevate you and speak life into you and give you the things that you deserve as a human being, then singleness may be for you. But I think we still have, even if we're talking about dating, even if someone's not dating, someone may be asexual, walking around the community, there are some unique sets of circumstances for Black women. It's like, if we walk around the neighborhood, maybe the neighborhood gangbanger may not get us, but maybe we go home, our daddy will. And I think we need to start having more discussions about how to be safer and how to not uphold and perpetuate these problematic ideals that we got from men and stop excusing this problematic behavior that these men are exhibiting and worry about our safety and what's best for us as Black women. And if that means the person that we're fucking with right now ain't Black, that's what it is. And if it means that he is Black, that's cool too. I don't want people excluding or including people just based off of skin tone or race.
Yeah, or money, or
that's not, especially not money either. Like you said earlier, and I've said it before, the most problematic men are men with money. I don't care what, especially a white man. I take that back. If you want a white man with money, look, understand that it comes with a risk of being beat on, come with a risk of being cheated on, of being seen as property, financial abuse. I just want us to go in life with our eyes open. And I feel like we have conversations that are so surface level that we're not being real. Like, we're talking about, what do you bring to the table and being submissive? Meanwhile, Black women are out here going on dates, being coerced into having sex over a fucking plate of pasta, or being assaulted because they rejected somebody.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that we have to consider. And look, there's a lot that we can control about our dating lives. There's a lot that we can't control. And I just want people to be understanding what the part that you can't control is, so that you can take self-defense classes, get your concealed carry license, whatever that looks like for you protecting yourself. These men have demonstrated that they are not going to protect us. They're going to cover up these crimes committed by other men, and they're going to shame us for it. So I just want us to just go into the world with our eyes fully open, so that we can make the best decisions possible for ourselves.
Right.
We can't prevent someone else doing bad things to us, but we're also not sitting ducks.
I agree, sis.
And
I agree.
As I'll add on this part for you, as I will always agree with this. This is not a Black man thing, even though in our community it may be at a disproportionate rate. We have to deal with it more than other women, but this is a man problem. People conditioned as men behave like this.
Right.
So take your standards and boundaries, expectations, and understand that men act like this. Don't think because, oh, he's white, he's not Black, he ain't gonna do this, or oh, he's Mexican, he ain't gonna do this, which Mexican's not a race, but you know what I'm saying. But don't walk in around life just thinking because someone's not Black that this shit is not happening. That doesn't make any sense either.
Absolutely.
Oh shit. I think let me stop sharing my screen.
We've been seeing it for like the last 15 minutes.
Right.
What you hiding now?
I'm sorry.
We're like,
What
this
you
cool,
hiding?
this all
No, I
right.
thought there was somebody in the waiting room. But no, it's just, it's again, we're having a conversation about what's unique to Black women, right? Like, all women have to deal with this. Like, this is the patriarchal way. Like, I don't know what y'all want me to tell y'all. Like, this is just what men do.
We have someone in the waiting room?
Huh?
You said we have someone in the waiting room?
They left, my bad. I'm sorry, I was long-winded, my bad. I'm sorry, homie. I'll catch you next week. Sorry. My bad. But no, I feel like I think the biggest takeaways from y'all is that, for one, women, again, need to understand it's a man thing. But two, also be very realistic. Like, we're not 18 or 16 getting with the boy that has the best swag and the new shoes and the coolest backpack. Listen, here's the thing. Here, I'm gonna put it like this, and we can be done, and we can go through closing remarks, right? Like, when you think about your standards and boundaries and expectations, I want you to consider life, real life where we have ups and downs, right? I want you to think about, if you are a person that wants to be married, think about your vows through sickness and health, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer. Is your man being 6'3" gonna fucking matter when your man lost his job last week and the mortgage is due tomorrow? Is your man being fine gonna matter when your mama die? Is him having swag gonna be a thing or relevant when your child acting up in school?
Is his dick gonna be 10 inches when you overhear mad that y'all can't get nothing done productively in the house?
Facts. So I want Black women to kind of like, I mean, we have like this, I think that's a part of, if I were to say that we have immaturity anywhere, it's with that whole schoolgirl idea of relationships and
of our standards.
Yeah, no, I need you to think about who you want in your corner when you get in a car accident. Who do you want taking care of you when, if you were to ever get into an accident and God forbid you got to be in diapers for 6 months?
Coco, can I say something? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You know what? I'm on your YouTube and I'm just reading the comments. Ashika, the sick dolphin, she's hilarious. Earlier on, when you were talking about, like, I think you were just giving an overall of the lions and stuff like that. And you were like, oh, the male lions go out to eat. In my mind, I was like, well, the male lions don't hunt, right? But interestingly enough, she said it. And what I find funny is that if you are a lioness, like legitly, you take care of, raising the cubs, but you also go out
and get
the food. And then guess who eats
all he's there for is fucking.
They actually get, like, honestly, I feel like lionesses are the closest to pick-me's that you're gonna find, because they literally feed the male first, even though all he did was just sit there. You know what I'm saying? But again, to that point, he is a protector. And I feel like a lot of Black men who use that reference, it's because, like, that's what they know. They're like, I don't have to do fuck all, and y'all still gotta feed me. I'm just sorry, but just because every guy that ever uses a lion as reference to who he is immediately is either a Leo or somebody I don't want to talk to. I just want to throw that out.
Look, they need to get like penguins. How about you? I'm gonna drop these kids off and you take care of it,
right? But anyway, I just wanted to tell Sheikah, like, see this, I see you out there. I see you. You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness. But yes, it's just, I think we need to have more realistic conversations about this, because the conversations that I do see happening, they are very superficial, vain, and shallow. And that's problematic. Because if the only standard you can think of, oh, well, I want him to be tall and he has to make lots of money and he has to be cute because I want cute babies, and he has to have nice hair because I want babies with curly. It's like, girl, are you 14 writing in your diary? Like, yes, of course he needs to be attractive to you, but like, girl, can we get some range going? Like,
listen, I don't know who, listen,
I know we're talking about
women out there,
but the men,
a lot of us got to like 40 and then found the man that we actually, like, we've picked now, like, we actually want to be with him. And then we realized that for like the last 20 years of our dating lives, like some of us didn't know what an orgasm was. We were just out here lost in the sauce. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying to say that, like, you know what? Yes, vet your partners, because there's a lot of fun out there that we are missing out on.
It couldn't be. One of my standards has always been, if you can't tickle, if you can't reach the bottom of the peanut butter jar and make it do what it do, you don't got no place in my life, homeboy. You gotta go.
Girl, they said that heterosexual men hit that 67% of times. Listen, if anybody was going to land a plane and their record was 67%, we would not board that plane.
I'm not going on the plane.
I'm not getting on no damn plane with you.
Spirit Airlines is better than that,
right? Yo, the American, you guys have a Spirit. We have flair, okay?
Oh, okay,
so let me tell you, 67%. So that's why I'm realizing at 41 years old, I spent, probably 15 out of the 20 years that I've dated really in some weird bliss. And it just took me a long time to realize that heterosexuality is really not a choice, and it is a damn ghetto. It's the ghetto. I didn't pick
for all the heterosexual women out there, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm pansexual, so I still get that I'm attracted to men like against my will, but to really only be attracted to them, and that's the only option I have in sexual partner.
Especially to be the ones who only are attracted to the heterosexual man. Could you imagine?
Listen, ladies. I'm just put this out here. I updated my dating profile the other day, and I have, and I'm just gonna say this out loud. I have opened obviously my dating pool to include, obviously trans men and also mass presenting women. But the reality is that I look at women and I think they're beautiful. But when it comes to me, like being sexually attracted, there's just something about the way men look.
Yeah.
Even if it's on a sister who is a stud, there's just something there. I don't know.
Don't force it. I as someone who, has always been, first of all, I've always liked both genders. I recently deconstructed gender, so now I'm pansexual. I've never limited my options to men. I've never limited my options to Black men. And I'm like, look, you better create with that whole Crayola box. You better go out there and flourish, girl. Because listen, and this may take a turn for the worse, but one of the things I will always teach my daughters, if the person you with cannot please you, you got to go somewhere else. You got to get up out of there, homie.
Life is too short for bad sex. Too short.
Too short. No,
and I also will say for everybody, not just non-hetero women, okay? If you can get with a man that is progressive and forward thinking, straps help everybody.
Wow. Well.
So if he wanted to, you know what? Let's go, because we're not doing this.
You don't want to do it?
We're not doing this on YouTube. We're not doing this on YouTube. I mean, we can go there, but we're not doing this on YouTube.
Let's get some background music.
No, this can be part of opening your options. If you are a heterosexual woman, everything at Adam and Eve is not off limits just because your man come with equipment. Sometimes extra equipment is noise.
Maybe he just needs a teammate. It's a teammate.
Okay.
Listen, teamwork makes the dream work, okay?
Teamwork makes the V work, okay? I don't know if I hope they picking up when we laying down.
Right?
A lot of y'all got ED and don't want to admit it.
Look, and also women, since we're talking to the women today, right? We're talking to the women.
We'll come to the men later. We'll come to the men later.
Catching their edges. But self-love is the best love too sometimes. Yeah, cool. Be verbal with your partner. Do not expect that someone's going to come and just know all your spots. You got to let them know where the spots are and how to get it. right? I know it may be a lot of work up front, but like this whole my partner should be a mind reader, not gonna work. Okay. And listen, once you tell them once and you walk them through it, you ain't gotta tell them again, right? And if you do, that's fine. Communication. But we gotta go. My mother is in the chat and I'm uncomfortable.
Okay.
My mother is in the chat. I'm uncomfortable.
Your birth mother? The one who birthed you?
My biological mother that carried me for 7.5 months.
Bye. I gotta go.
So for YouTube, y'all stick around, but for YouTube, thank y'all for sliding through. I'm gonna end the live stream. Next Sunday, I'll be here at 6. We're gonna actually do a little we're gonna watch a documentary. We're gonna watch Tough Guys. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, but it's a documentary from 1999 that basically tells us more about how patriarchy got that way, how men absorb misogyny, and how they present through their tough guys. You see
Okay.
that?
Nice. What?
That is so
So
funny.
to the YouTube people, bye. I'll see y'all on the flip side. I don't even know